Hi, everybody. It's Allison Williams here from the Williams Law Group, and I want to welcome you to our show, Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. So for those of you that are not familiar with the show, let me just tell you a little bit about our format and why we're here, what we're doing, and why you should listen. So Williams Law Group is a family law firm. We're located in Short Hills, New Jersey, and we serve clients all over the state, but primarily in northern New Jersey, dealing with issues of divorce, custody, child support, domestic violence, and child abuse and neglect. And we've helped families in this area of the law, me personally for 15 years, but my team combined, we have over 70 years of experience in the aggregate helping families deal with these issues. And one of the things that we have found dealing with family law is that people have thought of divorce for a long time as a destructive process, meaning you have a family, your family is now going to be torn apart through the divorce process, and you're going to have to now rebuild your life. And there's some element of truth to that. It's a consistency that we see across families. But one of the things that we were really hoping to accomplish, and this is the reason why I created this law firm, is to really reformulate the way in which families conceive of the issue of divorce. Now, divorce is a change. It is definitely a transition, but it does not have to be a destructive process. You can actually think about the way that you are restructuring your family as a positive. And now you're going to be able to create a whole new life that really is better suited to the person that you have become, that you are now at the stage where you are ending your marital relationship. Now, that having been said, we don't just help people in divorce. We help people with all sorts of family issues. And many times that involves helping people try to sustain their relationships. So I'm very pleased that our guest tonight is somebody who very much works in that area and helps families to keep themselves together and to function healthily together as a family unit. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce our first guest. Our guest for tonight is Coach Keith Dent. Coach Keith is a certified empowerment coach. And we're going to talk a little bit about what coaching means, but just know that he actually is certified by the Institute for Professional Empowerment Coaching. And he helps people focus on the future through his coaching practice, but he also is a counselor. And so counseling really looks at the past and helps people orient themselves based on what's happened in their past. He has over a decade of experience helping individuals, couples, families, and teens with their parents work on various different issues involving relationships. And in particular, with teens, he helps teens with issues of academics, athletics, college preparation and applications, and goal setting in their futures. One of the things that I think is fabulous about Coach Keith is the fact that he really helps kids look at patterns that promise their future. So it's something that we obviously know that we help adults in the family law world, but teens and formulating healthy relationships when they start their life is certainly something that would help to resolve a lot of issues before they ultimately find their way into our office. So we're very blessed to have Coach Keith tonight. Coach Keith has received his Bachelor's of Science from Georgetown University and his Master's of Science from Milano, the New School for Management and Urban Policy. And so with that, I want to welcome Coach Keith to the show. Coach Keith, thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show tonight. And thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Thank you for just the platform. It's very rare where you see lawyers that create kind of a holistic approach to families and support. So it's great I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And I want to thank those people that are tuning in on our show. I will try to acknowledge people as they're coming in. We have Warren with us. I saw Carla coming in. We have Judy Ann Chung. And I'm seeing some other faces that are coming in. We'll try to acknowledge people as they come into the show. For those of you that are just tuning in, we're just at the start of our interview with Coach Keith. So please drop comments. Let us know that you're here. Let us know what you like and what you love. If you have any constructive feedback, please drop it into the comments. Anything that you really like, that you really appreciated hearing, also drop it into the comments. And please share the live so that your friends and contacts will also have the benefit of Coach Keith's wisdom tonight. So without further ado, I want to jump into our first question, which deals with infidelity. And that's going to be our topic for tonight. So we know that a lot of families are not able, a lot of couples are not able to keep their relationships together after one or both parties perhaps have been unfaithful. And so with that, and that being our topic, can you talk to us a little bit about why that particular form of betrayal in a relationship is so hard to overcome?
Well, I think it's at the essence of where a lot of couples really have problems, because the thing is, when you stand before your pastor or even at the justice of the peace, you make a vow, to a person. So it's almost even like a contract on the things that you're going to do. You're going to honor your wife. You're going to honor your husband. You're going to, and sickness in health. So it's funny, some of the things that, the vows that say, or even when individuals perform their own vows, they really hold true to those words. So when there is a betrayal of some sort, and we're really talking about infidelity tonight, that really just cuts to the core of the beliefs that the couples had when they first got married. So it just tells the other person that you either didn't believe in the vows that we set forth to begin with, or you didn't feel comfortable enough to communicate that you no longer wanted to live those vows. You would rather either just go behind my back and do them. And so that just really cuts to the core of someone's kind of either self-esteem or their self-worth. And it can really be problematic in a person's couple's relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the idea of it cutting someone's self-esteem, one of the things that we see a lot of in the family law realm is when that particular issue has found its way into divorce court, people become so mired in the idea that they didn't, quote, do anything wrong. And so they want to demonize the person that committed adultery. And they oftentimes don't want to look at their own behavior because they don't want to absolve their partner of having made that choice. Can you talk a little bit about how you deal with that particular issue with couples that want to move forward from adultery?
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because just kind of an example to your point was, I was at the gym, it was probably about a month or so ago, and in the locker room, and there were two gentlemen talking about their impending divorces. And the guy was so angry. He was so much so that he wanted to make sure that she did not get the house, and so, and I didn't hear all of the, as far as if they had children or not, but I could only probably guess that they probably did have a family. And so he was so willing to not make sure his family was comfortable, and because of the fact that he was hurt due to some kind of betrayal. And I think that when you as a coach, I have the ability to kind of help them to step back and say, well, what was your part in what was played? And I think when it's two individuals that go kind of battle each other, it's almost like a competition. Okay, since you hurt me, I am going to hurt you, and maybe just as bad or more. So I think that's one of the issues, one of the importance of dealing with either a family therapist or a coach kind of prior to heading into divorce proceedings, because it kind of takes the competition out of it.
Yeah. So since you mentioned both in that last description, both counseling and coaching, can you talk to us a little bit about the distinction? Because there are some people that have heard of the phrase coach, but they don't necessarily know how that is distinguishable from a mental health professional that might deal with counseling.
Well, what we've always said, kind of as a coach, our role is to focus on the present, where they are right now, and use techniques possible to help them move forward in their relationship, wherever it is may be. As opposed, counseling's a little different, because they're going to focus primarily on the past and what preceded the events that maybe led them to getting divorced. So there is a little distinct difference. Not that coaches don't delve in the past when necessary, because there are certain things techniques that you can do that you have to go to the past, but we just try not to mire in the past, just more moving the couple forward to where they are.
Wow. Yeah. So thank you for that definition and for that description. We know that a lot of people have been looking for the right resource. And so having that understanding might help get people into the right professional's hands when they're looking to address these issues. So I want to shift a little bit now and ask you about how to help someone with a relationship issue. If they have had infidelity in their relationship, how do you help? What are the elements that they need to help get that relationship back on track?
Well, one of the things I try to do, especially from the outset, and this is really for my own, how I kind of set the practice is that I really like to delve into the personalities. There's 4 different temperaments that I use. And it helps me, one, with a framework of how they view not only themselves, but how they interact with a couple. So case in point, kind of the 4 temperaments that I deal with are, there's a thinker, there's a influencer, there's a relator, and there's a doer. So, you kind of can get a sense of what those words mean. But if there is, and I'll just use two temperaments that may clash a little bit. So that's someone that's a doer and someone that's a thinker. So a person that's a doer tends to want to make sure everything is done, and so they can check things off, whereby a thinker is someone that's going to be a little slower pace to do things, because they're going to be focused on making sure things are done the right way. They're going to analyze it to the nth degree and look at all the different possibilities on how things are done. So in the fact that if there is a betrayal or issue, the doer is going to be very volatile on why this person did this certain things. They're going to want to answer right away, as opposed to the thinker is going to be very analytical about all the different possibilities, what led to the issue, or slow to give kind of a response, and that can really be a source of conflict. But it's helpful to me because what I can do now is like show them, okay, during certain periods, this is how you're interacting with the other, because of the fact that you're looking from a different mindset. So that does help kind of set the tone for our kind of sessions together. And then, so then I will, kind of look at their communication style to help figure out where was the breakdown. Because due to the infidelity usually is due to some communication breakdown between the couples. And that really helps, because now they'll be able to step back and then kind of assess where the issues are, and then figure out how they can start to move forward by giving specific exercises to maybe either get the issue out, why those, what were some of the problems that they had in their relationship, so they could start to chip away at some of the challenges that they're having.
Yeah. So Coach Keith, I mean, that's an interesting description that you gave, this different styles of relating and the way that people might be a thinker versus a doer or an influencer. I don't know really how you merge those 2 distinct styles. I mean, at least once the infidelity has happened, because if you go into the relationship knowing that your partner approaches, maybe you can adapt some of your style and he or she can adapt their style. But after the hurt has happened, I don't know that any person would be receptive to hearing, okay, let me get name, rank, and serial number. I want all the dates, all the times, all the locations.
Right.
For the guys that are on the live today, I know that I often hear from my male clients that she just wanted to like relive this, and I wanted to just put it past me, and you really can't move forward because there's almost like a stick in the mud that we have about that. We have a comment here from a psychologist that's on the line, Dr. Carla Cook, and she says, I hear that definition a lot, and I think it's a bit skewed. many counselors use an approach that they never look at the past. Counselors also are also very focused on the present and the future. I think coaches often take a more active role in identifying opportunities, provide specific information, and give advice. So there's a difference of opinion about the definition of coaching versus counseling. I just wanted to put that out there. That's an observation of one of our guests tonight.
Yeah, and I won't disagree with that. I do think coaches do have different styles. I think it just does boil down with the individual. What we always try to do as coaches, try not to, and I'm not saying counselors don't do this, but we try not to interject ourselves within the situation as well. We try to kind of not get into the sandbox and try to give them the tools from a couple or the individual to help them to move forward.
Yeah, so absolutely, and there are benefits to coaching and counseling. I will share with our viewing audience that I have gone through a lot of coaching, and I also have seen a counselor in the past, and so I'm familiar with how the individuals that I chose to employ actually handled it a little bit differently. But I got a great deal of wealth out of both professionals, so I can't really speak enough for people that really get help, that they should seek help from the right type of professional. You can get value out of both coaching and counseling. So Dr. Or Mr. Coach Dent, I want to just kind of shift a little bit, back to what you said about different communication styles. Can you share a little bit with us about how, once you have identified that infidelity is the problem in the relationship, how those different communication styles are addressed for the future, now that the couple has decided that they want to try to preserve the relationship?
Well, it helps to know the style, because it will determine there may be one individual who's more of the better communicator. So it helps to align
Would that
with.
be the woman?
No, no, absolutely. No,
it out there.
absolutely
I know
not.
I'm going to spark some controversy with that because we hear that a lot, but I know that's not always the case.
Well, that's
biased, I'll acknowledge it.
It's interesting because I have. It may not be that they're the better communicator. It's just how they communicate, and that's interesting because in the book that I just wrote, it's called "In the Paint: How to Win at the Game of Love." Men communicate just in a different way, and I use kind of sports as an example. If you see sports figures, or if you see men that watch sports, they could communicate about sports all day, all night, because it kind of gets to the heart of their language. They understand it. It's quick bursts. It's I guess if you want to say cliches, it's kind of quick things, but they understand it and they get it. But women are versed at communicating. They're being able to communicate their thoughts and feelings in a very succinct way. And when men aren't able to do that, it can be a source of frustrations. Like, what? You can't really tell me why you don't love me anymore, or why you felt the need to step out into my marriage. But you can talk about these other things with such passion. So, and I think so. If there could be a shift in how you communicate, I think it could be a lot more productive.
Yeah, and that's something that you help couples with in terms of
Yes.
how to communicate so that they actually hear each other and are not simply talking to be heard, but are talking to actually get the message across to their partner.
Absolutely. And it could be in a different way. Maybe instead of maybe face to face, maybe they need to write a letter, or they need to or just give quick bullets of what it is that were the issues. And one of the interesting techniques is that I kind of get an assessment of where they are in the relationship from a number standpoint. So let's say they're at a 2, with a betrayal, then it's going to be pretty low. So what needs to be done to move it higher? Maybe 1 or 2 points. So it's an interesting take because they have to think about that. Okay, I might feel a little better if we can talk for share just each other for 5 or 10 minutes, or you just come into the room where I am. And so I did, kind of had a couple that kind of had those challenges where one of the individuals would retire to the bedroom to, kind of do work, and the other one was downstairs. So there was kind of a lost connection there, whereby if they there could have been a just connection just by being in the same room as opposed to being distant.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to circle back to acknowledge that we had another comment from, ironically, a coach, Judy Chung, and she noted that coaches do tend to stay away from giving advice because when we do such, it pushes us into the consultation stage. So we kind of have a little not so battled war of the coaches and counselors on the thread, but they both acknowledge that there's a need for both professionals. And so obviously you're giving great advice in that. For anyone that's just tuning in, you are watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. And today we have our guest, Coach Keith Dent. Coach Keith has over a decade of experience helping individuals, couples, teens and their parents deal with relationship issues. And in particular, he is certified by the Institute of Professional Empowerment Coaching, also known as IPEC, which is one of the gold standards of coaching education in the industry. So, Coach Keith, I want to now shift a little bit and talk about something that we were discussing in preparation for today, the idea of having a mission statement for the relationship. So obviously, if the issue of infidelity has come up and the family is trying to work things out and stay together, why would you suggest that a couple actually pursue having a mission statement when they are in those times of trouble?
I think it's a way to kind of bring them back together. The infidelity is out there. Is it going to go away immediately? No. It is going to take some time. And that's just for both parties, even for the one that was the betrayer. They're going to have also bouts of guilt, especially if they're trying to mend the relationship, bouts of guilt. They're going to be rather, reticent about doing certain things because it may bring up maybe a statement could bring up the fact that there was an infidelity that goes on. So what I try to do is to get them to think about what good is in the relationship. So by kind of creating a mission statement for their relationship, it helps them to kind of get back on the same page, because individuals, we all are human. We do make mistakes. But the goal, or kind of what we want to try to do, is not try to have them languish in that mistake for the rest of their lives. Otherwise, they won't be able to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're working with a couple on this idea of a mission statement, how do you work with the two people? And obviously, I don't want to get too far into the weeds of your specific special sauce techniques. Obviously, for anyone that really wants to get in there, they should come in and see you. But, how do you work with two people that may have very different conceptions of what their relationship is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to mean? How do you get to the values of both people and integrate that into one mission statement?
Well, it does take more than maybe a session or two. I try to give them certain questions that are not specifically in regards to relationships. So a good example is if they got interviewed by let's say a news producer or a newscaster. What are some of their what would be some of the things they would say about their relationship? Good qualities, I should say, because I want not to focus on the bad, because they could easily say, well, oh, he's a cheater, or she's a cheater. But what are some of the good qualities? So it helps them to focus on, well, there are aspects of, think about the marriage that they did appreciate. So that's one aspect to help them really move forward. And then there may be how you can honor your partner. So then it thinks about, okay, there may have been some part that the other person just didn't feel appreciated. So if they can think about those things, it starts to say, okay, one, you get to hear that out loud, that I do appreciate the person, my partner, and two, those kind of words, good words that are now that they're using really will start to permeate within their, psyche.
Yeah. So one of the things that that I hear you talking about is you're talking about how the two people have to work together on the relationship. But one of the things that we find that's very difficult as a divorce attorney and helping a family through that is, both parties are at the same time trying to hear the other side. They're also trying to rebuild their sense of self that's been eroded by what happened with the infidelity. And so it's almost like every step forward where I reaffirm the positive things about my partner, that inherently makes me question what was my value that they chose to step into the relationship.
Right.
And so there seems to be kind of almost an inherent contradiction in working on the relationship until you've restored the two human beings back to wholeness, as they are struggling with that. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit for us?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I always allow the couples, when necessary, if they want to have an individual session, to do so. Because I do think there are, let's say the couple has taken a couple of steps forward, but maybe the party that's been hurt still has some walls that they have up that they don't necessarily want to share right away, because they know if they lash out, it will damage some of the strides that they have made. So I do try to allow that, even if I do see, my intuition sees that there is some kind of roadblock between them, I will kind of suggest, if the person would like to have an individual session, and of course it would be their choice. But I would bring, although I'm kind of feel some blocks here. Is that the case? And if so, maybe we should step back and deal with them on an individual level. And so that does allow a little bit of comfort that one of the couples could come and just have a session by themselves.
Okay, well, that's very good to know that that's something that you allow those breakout sessions. For anyone that's just joining us, you are watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the host and owner of the Williams Law Group, and we're talking today to Coach Keith Dent. Coach Keith is a relationship coach, and he helps individuals, couples, parents, and teens deal with various issues surrounding relationships. Today's topic is infidelity, and so Coach Keith has been talking to us about some of the ways in which he has helped couples move past infidelity. It is a goal that if it's something that you've encountered, that if at all possible, that you preserve the relationship so that you don't have to come and see someone like me. But we welcome and we're very grateful to have Coach Keith with us today. So now, Coach Keith, let me ask you a question. I just want to shift now to the issue of kind of selfishness. And what I mean by that is there are times where, as we've been talking about, the individual has been broken by the infidelity. They are really struggling to gain a sense of their own self-esteem again. And some have said during that process that they should focus on themselves to rebuild themselves into healthiness. And others have said you really have to focus on the relationship without that kind of ceasefire. I just want to ask your thoughts on the idea of having a selfish moment. Some people have said that might be counterproductive, but my understanding is that you think that that the opposite is true, that they actually do have to go through a period of selfishness. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I think there does have to be some part of selfishness, because the only way you kind of build yourself back up is to focus on yourself, what your needs were. And I think what does happen when there is some infidelity, the person that is harmed will think, well, what is it that I gave so much to you, and you betrayed me. And so they're really gonna, that's where kind of the anger a lot of the anger comes in because the person did feel like they gave, and then the party that did the harm just took advantage. So in order to kind of get them back up to the level where they do feel some sort of self-esteem, they do have to kind of be a little bit selfish and set some boundaries about what it is that they need to do to get back on track. Whether it be they need some time away, a couple of, maybe some days time away, or they need, I need you to do this for the family because this is one of the things that you weren't doing. And so I'm just using this example, as I was taking care of the kids and making sure your kids were taken care of, you were out doing something else. So now it's your turn. And I just need this time to go find out who I am. You do hear that a lot. I'm sure you do as well, is that, I lost my sense of who I am as an individual. So the only way to kind of get back on track is to kind of do some of those things that they've given up.
Definitely. And I just want to acknowledge we have some more guests that have joined the show. Amy Kors, hello. I failed to mention earlier, we had Warren Speller with us and also Daryl Brooks. And I want to thank you all for watching. For those of you that are here, if there are any questions that you have, Coach Keith is here. He's our resource for the hour. So please feel free to ask questions. I will make sure to the extent I can get your questions before him so he can give us some thoughts. And these questions, given the intimate nature of what we're talking about, they don't have to be your questions. They can be questions for your clients or for your patients or for your friends or for any person that you know that might benefit from hearing the answers. Also, I want to thank you all that are here. Please, by all means, if you are getting value out of today's program, please share the live so that your friends and contacts can also have an opportunity to gain the valuable insights of Coach Keith Dent that we have here talking to us about relationships and in particular, how to move forward from infidelity. So with that, Coach Keith, I want to ask you a question about betrayal and this notion of having had this issue of relationship betrayal. When the parties are going through what they're going through, when they're struggling with the fact that one party has cheated, or perhaps even both of them, one party has cheated, one is cheated in response, there are times where people are going to have to make adjustments to how they functioned in the relationship that led to the breakdown that ultimately culminated in the infidelity. Can you talk to us about how people are ultimately directed to make adjustments and how you deal with that issue when you're coaching a couple into that new reality for themselves?
Well, first they have to acknowledge that they did do something wrong in their relationship. They did harm the relationship by having infidelity, either one or both parties. And then this is, by kind of having the mission statement and completing that, then the steps, there have to be some steps necessary to hold the individuals accountable for what they're trying to do to get to the relationship that they want. And so as a coach, it's good to kind of see those steps, make sure they're drawn out. Even in the sessions that when I work with couples, I will, I do take notes, and I will give the notes back to them because it helps them to see these things in writing, that this is what they said they're going to do in order to move forward. And so there are times when I may have to be a little direct to ask, well, why is it that they're not holding each other accountable?
What does direct mean?
Yes,
so we've already got somebody who's wounded. They've come in and they've said, my significant other was caught, the Shaggy defense didn't work. Shaggy is an artist. He sung the song, "It Wasn't Me." Okay. I walked in, right. I caught you on the kitchen counter, and I know that you had somebody in my bed. So this person is now devastated. And you're now going to confront them with, your direct communication with them. Tell me what does that entail exactly?
Well, it's so it's like, what, really? It wasn't you? I think your spouse knows exactly what you look like without without the DNA. And so it's a bit, well, why do you feel that you have to deny the things that have been done? What is it? So there are a lot, it may not work immediately, but there has, to get to that acknowledgement is key, and it's critical if they want to move forward. So because I'm going to say, well, look, you've actually come to me saying that you want to mend this relationship to move forward. And if they are given pushback, say, so do you really want to move forward with this relationship? You are not being honest, and it's not really the honesty with me, because I'm not married to the person. The person next to you is married to you. And so you're actually telling this person that you are being untruthful still. So how important is this relationship to you? So that's pretty direct. How important is this relationship? Yeah. And so they have to answer if it's not honest. Let's say if they say, well, it's really not that important. So direct it to the other person. So do you see what the person that harmed you, you see what his reaction is? Do you really want to move forward with this now? And so, no, it's like, okay, go back and see Allison, because it's clear that this relationship is not going to move forward. And as a coach, we also have to be okay with that, is that this relationship is beyond repair. And so it's time to move forward to the next steps, which was, separation and then divorce.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate when that happens, where you get people to make some movement forward and then they stop. And we see that a lot with mental health professionals. So one of the things that I pride our firm on is creating a collaborative relationship, really, between the lawyers and the professionals that are giving support and sustaining power to the client, so that the client is in a better headspace to be able to make critical decisions. And sometimes that may mean taking a break from the divorce process to try to give the relationship another chance, or sometimes it's the relationship is now going to be reformed. It's not going to end if you have children, but it may need to be reformed, and it needs to be healthier whether you're staying together or you're not, because you're going to have to deal with it for your kids. But one of the things that came to my mind as you were talking earlier is, we have a couple of mental health professionals on the live today. And one thing that gives people a lot of confidence in the notion that they can at least try to preserve their relationship if they're dealing with a counselor is that there are a host of privileges that will immunize communications about the relationship from disclosure if you get to court. So if husband and wife are coming to see you and you're a coach and you're not serving in the role of a social worker or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, do they have the same agreement that they're not going to share what's discussed in coaching outside of that forum? How do you deal with that issue? And have you ever had maybe a lawyer either seek access to someone's otherwise deemed to be confidential communications? Is that something that you've ever encountered?
No, I have not encountered. I haven't encountered that before. But what we do stress that our sessions are confidential, and even to the point where, especially if there's more than one session, there is a contract that we have them fill out so they can sign. It's a simple contract, but it just lets them know that the things that we're discussing are, confidential within the space.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, that you're by contract having the parties agree that confidentiality is supposed to be a part of the relationship. But one of my dearest friend, Amy Kors, is on the live today, and she's also a matrimonial attorney. She, like me, is a fellow of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And I don't know that if sharks were in the water and Amy was circling around the cheating wife, we'll say, let's flip the script. Let's not always use the husband cheating. If it's the cheating wife and Amy wanted to get access to some of those communications in coaching about what the wife admitted to, perhaps its impact, if any, on the children, and whether or not that made her a fit custodian for the kids, she might say, okay, well, you can contract all you want to deal with your spouse, but I don't know that you can contractually agree not to have certain information available to the court that could impact the welfare of children. So I have never seen a case of that. If there's anyone on the line that knows anything about that, has had a case where coaching communications to try to save a relationship are at bay, I'd be happy to hear some thoughts on that. But for those that may now think twice about coaching, I definitely don't want to encourage you to do that, because I will say this, that most judges don't really care who did what to whom in the bedroom or in the kitchen or in the bathroom or wherever. Really, it's about what are your assets, what are your liabilities, what's a fair and equitable distribution of property, and as to children, what makes you the best fit parent to deal with custody and have primary custody of your kids. So it's not necessarily going to matter until it does, right? There's always
Right.
So if you're not the one who's had that test case, you're lucky. But I just throw that out there for consideration. So we've been talking about infidelity in relationships, and Coach Keith has been sharing with us some of his insights about how he can help couples move forward from infidelity. But one of the things that I really would love to hear about, Coach, is if you have a couple that is coming to the table, they earnestly want to work on the relationship, but one party just can't seem to move forward even though they want to. Do you ever recommend that parties separate while they're working on the relationship, or is that something that you think is going to hasten the end of the relationship if that happens?
If I saw that might be necessary, and it would be really based on what they were telling me or what I felt was necessary, I would remember, like I said, I am not going to infuse my own personality into it. So I'm gonna approach the question. How would you feel? From what I'm hearing, that she or he just needs some time to be alone. How do you feel about a separation of some point? And what would that look like? So it's something that they're gonna work on together. It would never be a one-sided thing that I would approach. And so it does it's good because then it allows the buy-in of both parties. Remember, they're trying to work on getting their relationship back on track. That's why they're coming to see me. So if they don't agree, then there may be there's got to be some other alternatives, but at least I'm approaching the conversation so they can move forward.
Definitely. And so anytime a couple is thinking about what to do, obviously you can't have unilateral approaches to a collective problem. The solution has to be fit for both of them. And I would just note, Coach Keith, that we've had some more people join the line. We have Lisa Williams here. We have Stephanie Steele. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And for anyone else that may happen by, it's either going to see it live or may see it in replay. You are watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. And Allison Williams, the owner of Williams Law Group. And tonight we actually have with us Coach Keith Dent. Coach Keith has over a decade of experience helping individuals, couples, parents, and teens deal with various different issues surrounding relationships. And our topic for tonight is dealing with infidelity and helping people move forward through infidelity once that has happened. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as we're talking about this topic is the idea of making adjustments, as we talked about earlier, the idea that people have to adjust to this new way of being in a relationship. Whatever was working or not working before, obviously it culminated in a problem where one person stepped out. And if you have that and you're now going to come together and say, we're going to try to resolve the issues in our relationship, you may very well have to adjust the way that you deal with your partner. Hopefully you will adopt new ways of being, but some of those adjustments really have to stick. And one would hope that they're not just a passing fancy. Can you talk about this notion of being consistent in making adjustments in the relationship and how you help people to accomplish that?
Well, I'm a big sports guy, so I do like to use a lot of sports analogies in my dealings with couples. And so if you're not winning the championship, you do have to make some adjustments. So one, you assess, well, why didn't we win? What were our weaknesses? What were some of the things that were keeping us from having the relationship that we want to have. And so, okay, when they give those, they kind of voice those things. Okay, what are, and if, let's say there's a long list, you want to pick out a few things that they can do. You want them to get some victories. If you try to have them focus on the whole entire list, I think those things can be overwhelming for both parties. Because one, you want to try to, it's easier to hold an individual accountable for a few things as opposed to trying to hold a person accountable for all the things. Because you can okay, so then let's say they try to do all the things. And then, so the party that, let's say, has been injured, it's like, oh, you've been doing a great job, but you messed up on this one thing. And so now they're stuck on, even though they started to move forward and make progress, now they are, this one little thing that they didn't do well is now the center point, focal point of why their relationship's not moving forward. So if they can work on just a few things and get, become great at those things that they have, the adjustments that they've been made, so those are victories that they can focus on and really be excited about. Okay, now that they've done those and they have got to a point where they're almost second nature, now they can add a few more things that they can do to move forward. And before I mean, I'm not trying to minimize it, that it's not going to take a long time, but before you know it, they have really moved forward and have really succeeded in getting their relationship back on track.
Absolutely. So, Coach Keith, I should note that you're kind of fading into dark right now. I don't know if that's
because it looks like it.
Lights going out. Yeah. But for anyone that can't see you, your name is displayed on the screen. I will again remind everybody in our audience that we are talking today to Coach Keith Dent. He is a relationship coach. He is certified by the Institute of Professional Empowerment Coaching, IPEC, which is the quintessential definition of the kind of the gold standard, if you will, for coaching in the industry. And he has over a decade of experience working with individuals, couples, parents, and teens on relationship issues. So we have a couple of great questions that have come in. One of the things that I think that first I'll start with is Dr. Cook asked the question, do you refer to mental health professionals, and under what circumstances would that happen?
I would refer to mental health professionals if it seemed like over time that there was mired in some kind of issue. That's a little bit tricky because I definitely am not a mental professional. But if I did get kind of my intuition, or I saw that there was something that just wasn't working right, or if the other partner had mentioned something that there had been some challenges in the past, that I would definitely get somebody involved, because I am focused on them as a couple and not necessarily those other issues.
Well, I mean, even though you're focused on them as a couple, if somebody has a personality disorder or has a psychological disorder that is impairing their ability to function, then obviously, it's going to impact the relationship, whether the relationship, moves forward or stalls out. One of the other comments that we had on the thread was about maybe presenting possible options. So can you talk to us about some options that you might give couples for how they can, once they have identified this problem, work together toward solving the relationship issues?
I'm not following. What options in what way?
Well, I should note that we got this comment from Hope Elizabeth Johnson. So maybe, Hope, if you could clarify what exactly you're looking for in terms of options. I would imagine it would be along the lines of just what kinds of options do you have that you offer to people for how they can choose to stay together if they're going to, how they move forward through that. But I'm going to let her speak to that. She's still with us. So I'll circle back around to that when she comments. But one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I think is very valuable is the idea that people oftentimes want to, they communicate in a different way, and they want to hold their spouse accountable for what has happened. And one of the things that I see a lot with people that come into my office is that they want they aren't necessarily out for blood. They aren't, they might start off that way. Everybody kind of has to go through that moment of grieving the loss of the relationship and being angry about it. So people will say things like, "Oh, I want to nail this person," or "I want to take everything that they have." But most people, you can get them around to recognizing that that's not what the law would provide for. So they're not going to go through that. But they will want to have some acknowledgement. In fact, I had one divorce case that lasted almost 3 years, and what really got us over the finish line, literally on the day of trial, that the judge said, "You're going to try this case, or somebody's getting thrown out of the thrown out of the courthouse today." It was that the husband acknowledged what he did, and he said, "I did this, and you were not to blame for it. It was my fault that this marriage is over." And that was all that my client needed. I mean, literally, if we had known, we were saying that for however long, we need you to own this. But sometimes you just can't get people to do that. So what do you do where you've got two people that appear to be intractable? One is saying, you have to admit it, and you have to, give me the details. And maybe this is a thinker, and this person wants to process, and this person wants to live out all the stories of when, where, who, where, and why. And the other person says, "I should be able to just apologize and say it happened. I don't want to go into the details. I want to move forward." How do you orient those two people to come together to a common solution?
That's a great question. What I have done, and I can only venture about what I have done in the past and working with couples, is the majority of the time the partner has acknowledged that they have done something, but they're coming because they don't have the tools to kind of calm the anger to move forward. So I try to give them the tools, necessary tools to kind of do so. But if there is, if there is that case where the person, let's say they haven't acknowledged, or they just are having a trouble of moving forward, there may be different techniques as far as kind of putting in a quadrant, or what's the worst thing that could happen if you decide not to acknowledge. If you do acknowledge, okay, how can the person that has been hurt find peace in the fact that now that he has done that, how are you not going to hold it over their head for the length of the relationship? Because it really, like you said, in the individual that it took 3 years, really, what did she really want? She just wanted her husband to acknowledge that he had made a mistake. So she could no longer maybe hold on to the fact that, what did she do wrong? So that was, and I don't know if that's the case. I'm thinking that the anger was because she kept all along thinking it was her fault. And what did she do to cause him to have to do this? But when he stepped back and said, really, it was my fault. You were, I'm going to say great, but you were not the reason. She was able to get some sense of normalcy back into herself. And that's the thing. And so as I'm working with couples, I'm trying to get them to a place of some sort of normalcy in their relationship, so they can not only be there for themselves as a couple, but also there for their kids. And that's, kind of part we haven't discussed as much. But that's important.
Yeah, it absolutely is important. And, sometimes if people get mired in the bitterness of their situation, whether the relationship goes forward or not, they often become toxic, not only for themselves and their partners, but for their kids. So since you've mentioned that, and, we have in multiple times throughout tonight's program mentioned that you work with teens. Let's talk in general about kids. How do you address with two people that are in a fractured relationship? How do you address with them the fact that their behavior and their ability or inability to resolve their issues surrounding this are going to have some impact on their kids? How is that addressed in your coaching sessions?
Well, I think it's it also depends on the age. I think the age is really key. But but kids do know when things are awry very early. And I don't think we as adults tend to kind of think about that, because we think, oh, they're just off in their own worlds and they're not paying attention. But in fact, they really are. So sometimes I even ask the couples to ask their kids, well, how do you think we're doing as mom and dad? And, put it in language that they'll understand. And you'll be amazed at some of the answers that you'll receive, because the kids can pick up when there's arguments. And I can even think about just my own marriage. I've been married 21 years and have 3 kids. So they'll ask my wife, or they'll ask, oh, what's wrong with dad, or what's wrong with mom? So there's not like they're not tuning in. They know when they can feel when things are not working. And so I'll bring them in, and depending on the age of if they're a little older, I may have the couples bring the kids into the mission statement process. And that does 2 things. One, it tells the kids that, okay, we're trying to make our family better. We are a family, and families do go through things sometime, but that doesn't mean that we can't resolve our differences. And so I think that does help. It does help the kids kind of get back on track. They may even have their own issues that they may have to deal with. But at least there may be some kind of, that takes some solace in the fact that they're going to be trying to move forward.
Well, that's great to know that you do help people to deal with their kids, because one of the things that we confront in matrimonial law on a pretty regular basis is, how do I tell the kids? And there are some parents. Many times there are differences of opinion about this as well. One party is very open and communicative with the kids. The kids know everything that's going on. Sometimes the kids know too much that's going on in the marital relationship. And the other party is very much, it's a children are to be seen and not heard. And, children don't get private information. And if you have 2 people that are not on the same page with that, then that's another area where you can have a lot of difficulty in bringing the parties together. So again, I want to remind everybody, you're watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the owner and founder of Williams Law Group, and we're talking to Coach Keith Dent. Coach Keith is a relationship coach. He has over a decade of experience helping individuals, couples, parents, and teens dealing with issues in surrounding relationships. And he has been talking to us tonight about infidelity and moving forward through infidelity. So as our show is coming to a conclusion, there are a few things I want to tell you. First of all, Coach Keith can be found at strive2succeedcoaching.com. His website is in the comments. Please, by all means, check out his company. He has had a lot of success in helping individuals resolve this particular issue, as well as other issues in relationships. So he's a great resource for that. I also want to thank those of you that stopped by and gave your comments about coaching versus counseling. They are distinct processes. Coach Keith is a coach. He is not a mental health professional, but we did have the benefit of a mental health professional on the live to give us a different view about that. But one of the things that is most important in all of this is recognizing that the family is going to be a family, whether it resides together in an intact unit or not. So whether you are going to seek on the right side of the screen, my assistance or the assistance of a member of our team here at Williams Law Group to help you with divorce, custody, support, child abuse and neglect or related issues, or you're going to seek out the assistance of Coach Dent or some other professional to help you try to save your relationship. Healthy relationships are necessary in no matter what stage of life that you're in. Whether you are remaining married, remaining single, making a choice to put your family together, however you are existing in life, you need to be mentally sound and to approach your life with joy and peace. So with that, I just want to conclude the show by giving Coach Keith the opportunity to give some final remarks about whatever he would like to share with us about moving through infidelity.
Well, thank you. I just want to acknowledge, moving through infidelity can be very difficult. But if you're able to acknowledge the fact that there was some betrayal and you can not hold it over the person's head for life, and kind of get some peace that you do want to move forward as well, by trying to find focus on maybe some of the good in the relationship. By working with me or any other professional, I think you can help your family to move forward. And if there is if by chance you do figure out that that's just not going to work, and you need to move to the fact that you need to get a divorce, that's okay too. And both parties will be able to pick up and move forward with their lives. And I think and that's okay. And we have to acknowledge that that's okay. I know a lot of times we try to make the other people feel less than before getting a divorce, but that's no longer the case anymore. We need to stop trying to belittle and those individuals, because it does happen.
Absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in tonight to Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams. Thank you again. And if you got value out of tonight's program, please drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you liked, what you want to get more of, what you would like to see in terms of future episodes. If you have any feedback for Coach Dent, please, by all means, share that in the comments as well. His information is there. I welcome you to go to his website, strive2succeedcoaching.com, and his contact information can be found on that website. I am Allison Williams. Thank you for joining us tonight. Join us next Monday when we will be talking to another guest about how to help you move your family forward. Good night.
Good night. And I'd like to say, if the individual who had the question about the options, feel free to email me, and I will try to address it as best I can.
Absolutely.